Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbart Gaming. This will be the inaugural video for a new series I'm starting called Gaming and Watching, which will be kinda like utterly pointless comparisons but with more stuff in it. And instead of focusing on the original platform and some port or conversion, for this series, I'll focus just on two versions of a game. I'm starting today with the NES and Sega Master System versions of Marble Madness. I'll still tell you a bit about the game, then I'll show you a full comparison with commentary, but then I'll show you the full comparison again with no talking and the sound turned up so you can hear the music and effects uninterrupted. So let's get this show on the road. The arcade version of Atari's Marble Madness, which I've been showing you here, was released in 1984, and there's something about it you may not have known. The lead programmer was Mark Cerny. Yes, that Mark Cerny, who had previously worked at Sega and more recently is known for being the lead designer of the PlayStation 5. Marble Madness used a trackball to control a marble through an isometric maze and was full of charm and whimsy. It was also playable by two players simultaneously. Marble Madness was ported to a lot, and I mean a lot, of consoles and computers. We'll look at two such ports today. In one corner, we have the 1989 NES version of the game, which was developed by Rare and published by Milton Bradley. Yes, the board game people. This version supported only gamepad controls, even though there were some trackball peripherals available for the NES. And despite that, this is still a pretty good game with excellent controls and two-player simultaneous play. In the other corner, we have the 1992 Sega Master System version of Marble Madness, which was released only in Europe, Australia, and Brazil, and was published by Virgin Games. Visually, the backgrounds are a standout feature here, and they do a great job of replicating the arcade game to the best of the Master System's ability. You might think that Marble Madness on SMS would be the perfect game to support the Sega Sports Pad peripheral, which has a trackball on it. If you think that, well, you're right. But if you think the developers and publisher bothered to add support for that peripheral, well, you're wrong! The main reason for this seeming oversight is most likely that the Sports Pad only had what many consider to be a semi-official release in the UK and other European countries. So this one is also control pad only, just like the NES game, and it also does support two-player simultaneous play. Alright, so my recording methodology here, I did use some save states so I could quickly record and complete this game for both versions, and what I'll do format-wise here, I'll show you the comparison of the NES and SMS versions of the game with commentary like usual, but then I'll show you level 1 from each game full screen, and then I'll split screen it again for the rest of the second playthrough, and I'll just alternate which version you're hearing. That way you'll get a good look at each version of the game. Alrighty, let's get on with it. Alright, and we are underway. So right as we get started here, you will see that the Sega Master System version has vastly superior background graphics. I mean, there's no questioning that. It looks a lot closer to the arcade game if we're looking at only the backgrounds. For the marble, well, on the NES, that looks much more like the arcade version than the Master System marble does, which is just a circle that has pretty much zero animation. And already, that's the end of the first race. So here again, look at all the differences in shading and colors in the Sega Master System version versus the very flat and much less detailed NES version of the game. So here, the NES, cannot display as many colors as the Master System, which is why we see that discrepancy. And I really wish on the Master System they'd done something about the marble. And as you've also already noticed by this point, the sound on the NES version is a lot more full and just full of, I would say, life and zest than the SMS port of the game. So on the Sega Master System, they used the PSG and it's not to good effect. Like, it's capable of much better. They could have had a soundtrack that much more closely replicated the arcade game, even though it wouldn't have, been the same. The arcade used an FM chip, and if you've ever seen the Japanese Genesis version of Marble Madness, the sound is almost identical to the arcade version. Alright, now we're going into our next stage here, and this is where it becomes really evident that the NES version, despite the fact that maybe it doesn't look as nice, controls considerably better than the Sega Master System version of the game. And you may not think that, it's all that different just looking at these videos next to each other because you're not seeing what I'm going through here, but it's a lot different. And these waves, I can't believe on the SMS they're just a static picture and we lose all the animation. They're literally in most other versions of the game. The only other one I can think of that doesn't have them is probably the Game Gear version, which is a port of the Master System one. Even on the lowly Game Boy they managed to get the waves in, even though they eliminated some other hazards. Maybe we'll look at those some other time. And then this is another area where just the faster speed and the turbo button on the NES just work great, and you feel like you have a lot more control over the marble than you do in this Master System release. Now here on the NES, we're missing the black marble on this part, and that lack of the black marble makes this part so much easier on NES than it is in any other version of the game that includes the marble. I always hated these stupid little poles that pop out of the ground. They're a little smoother on NES than the Master System, but on the Master System we see plenty of nicer shading and stuff again here. And we're almost at the end of this race, which hate this part with these stupid hammers here. So they did a good job with the hammers on all of them. While they look a lot better on the SMS, they're a little bit slower, and on the NES version of the game, they look a little more like the arcade one, and they feel a little better. There is another race in the books. Only got 2 left here, folks. We're almost at the end of this already. So here is our reverse race, where we have to go up. And once again, just look at so much more colors are obviously apparent on the Master System version. Here's our fun little part where we get revenge by killing lots of little miniature guys here that are versions of the enemies that we've seen up till now. One funny note, on the Game Boy version, they only have one big enemy in there and you can't run it over. I mean, that's one of the most fun parts of the game. Alright, and then we have this part here with the birds, and I don't know what's going on here on the Master System. Here on NES, it's a lot closer, the birds move a lot smoother. Here on the Sega Master System, they are just very slow and almost lethargic looking. They don't feel like the arcade game. Alright, we're almost at the end here in both versions of the game. Marble Madness only has 6 levels. And yeah, you can see there's way fewer shadows and stuff on the NES also. Now, in the Sega Master System version of the game here, this is the worst song in the whole game, what they did to it. So it sounds pretty good on the NES, it sounds terrible in the Master System. Just super weird, I don't know why they went so high with it. Very odd. And then here you can see on the SMS, we just have sort of planar tiles, while on the NES they flash more. And then this part looks a lot different on both of them, and believe it or not, this is the end of the game already. And on the Master System version, I couldn't get the moving platforms to start moving until, I moved my marble off the edge, and caused it to get crushed. Now, on the NES version, when we see it come back in a second here, it's paused right now, you'll see that the moving platforms, we only have like the top layer of tiles, and they're really fast. They're not supposed to be that fast, but it makes it really easy to navigate. So on the NES, you can kind of just go at high speed and, just roll for it and you'll have no problems. While on the Master System, you've got to be very slow and deliberate on this part or you will go off the edges. With the different materials we have, they force your marble to move around in some different ways, and it can be tough to maintain it. I can tell you I have died many, many times on this part, including, this playthrough. And then here on the NES, on the end screen, we have all different color marbles like we do in the arcade, while on the Sega Master System, we get nothing but blue balls. Blue marbles, sorry. Yeah, that's the end of the game, guys. There's not any more to it than that. That's all of Marble Madness. Okay, let's wrap up the commentary portion of the video. Both the NES and the SMS received pretty nice versions of Marble Madness, although both versions of the game came along pretty late. I mean, the original Marble Madness hit the arcades in 1984, 1989 on the NES, and 1992 on the SMS. They were excellent ports on home computers like the Amiga long before these versions came out. But if you only had the choice of either the NES or SMS versions of the game, I'd have to give the edge to the NES release. Marble Madness on NES controls noticeably better than its SMS counterpart, and the turbo speed button just feels way better and more effective in that version of the game. The gameplay is the most important thing here, and the NES wins that category. When it comes to graphics, the Sega Master System mostly comes out on top, with backgrounds that look vastly superior to the NES version with much better color and shading. The only downside on the SMS version is that the marble has zero animation. Most of the character of what the marble is in the animation when it rolls, and the NES version managed to retain that. So I'm not sure why it was cut here, unless they were just exceptionally tight on space. Finally, for sound and music, that's an easy win for the NES in this case. The music in the NES version is produced by several different waveforms that give it a fair amount of variety among its songs, and it can convey a lot of different moods and everything. On the SMS, the music sounds samey, lifeless, and barely there. This is unfortunately a case of unimpressive use of the Master System's PSG sound chip. So in the end, it's a slight edge to the NES game, even though both games are still pretty good. If the control felt equally as good on the Sega Master System, then I might have given that version the edge to become the winner, but it doesn't, so here we are. Alrighty, so remember to stick around after this part. This is usually where I end videos, but remember I'm going to show you more of the game with no commentary and no talking after this brief message. And because I'm going, I'll say my spiel now. So thanks for watching, and please share the video online somewhere. Help spread the word about my little channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. If you want to contribute to the work that I do here, then please check out my Patreon and Ko-fi links below, or you can support me right here on YouTube through super thanks and channel memberships. With that, I'll say thanks for watch. Oh, hey, wait a minute. That's right, you can't leave, there's more to watch. I'll catch you all next time. Stay for the rest of the comparison.